Hello, this is my audience. My name is Tiffany Marquardt, and my speech is called Cameras Throughout Time. Today, I want you to imagine what it would be like to live in a time before cameras were invented. People relied on portraits, storytelling, verbal descriptions of what people look like. Photography has always been a passion of mine. I've always wondered about who the credit went to for creating the first camera obscura and the first photograph. So I did my research on who created them. While cameras have drastically evolved throughout the eras, let us focus on the beginning of photography with the first camera obscura and the first photograph called the helography. The iconic devices like the Kodak Brownie Target 620 and who invented the Kodak cameras, the Argus C3, the era of instant photography with Polaroid, who invented them, and finally the interchangeable lenses and cameras from this decade. Let us dive into these types of cameras that will be discussed into more detail. Beginning the photography with the camera obscura and the photograph called helography. The camera obscura is also known for the dark chamber. It was a box-shaped device used for entertainment and drawing, and it lets light in through a small pinhole and opening on the side of the wall. And it also projects a reverse image and then an inverted image. This is an example of a camera obscura from back in the day. So then on this, the pinhole would direct the image on the side of the wall. Science Media Museum states that this ability of the pinhole to form an image appears to have been known to the ancient Chinese as early as the 4th century BC and was first described outside of China by the Arabian scholar Alhazen in about 1030. Next, who invented the helography? Amber Calloway from the Pro Photo Studio states that in 1826, Joseph Nafor Nepci, a French inventor, created what we now recognize as the first photograph using a process called the helography. Nepci captured an image on a pewter plate after 8 hours of exposure to light. Using the right materials and to create the helography, this would be a great part of history to be a part of. From learning using the right chemicals and the right temperature to let it dry. Next, let's move on to the iconic camera, the Brownie Target 620. There are different features of the Brownie camera. With this camera, you have the different viewfinders. Up here you have the portrait viewfinder where you're able to use it from there to take a picture. Then you also have the viewfinder on the side, and then you can tip it to the side and it'd be a landscape for the picture. This camera also uses a 620 film, but it also can use a 120 film. But the 120 film doesn't fit as good. This camera also has an sustainably and also a time shutter. Next is who invented these cameras. Nashville Film Institute states that George Eastman's company, Kodak, kickstarted it in the 1800s. It made photography a commoner's art. Nashville Film Institute also states that Eastman's developed a flexible film, which eventually led to the invention of the first camera film. Now that we've discussed information about the Kodak Brownie Target 6 and who invented Kodak cameras, let us move on to the Argus C3. With this Argus C3, this camera takes a 35 millimeter film. It also has a nickname. It's called the Brick. The reason why they call it the Brick is because it's heavy, and it also just is shaped more like a brick. Another thing, the lens in the front can be removed. But it also has a focal length, and it has a shutter speed of 1/10 to 1/300 of a second. The person that invented this was Guston Fashion. He was the one that had the overall design for it. New Zealand Geographic states that nearly 2 million were manufactured during a production run that began in 1939 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and spanned nearly 3 decades. Seeing these cameras being made would be a great experience. Next, let's move on to the era of instant photography. For the instant photography, there were so many Polaroid cameras that are out there. One of my favorites is this one right here. This one is the Automatic Land 100. With this one, it has bellows, folding bellows that are on the sides. Then it also has an automatic exposure. And it also uses a 100-pack film, and it's a peel-apart film. Next, you have the Pronto V Polaroid. This one is a very simple camera. With this camera, you have the SX70 film, but it also produces the square instant film right away. And it also has its battery and the cassette. For the Polaroid cameras, the inventor was Edwin H. Land. History.com states that on November 26, 1948, the first plain camera was better known today in the instant Polaroid camera. It would go on sale in the Jordan Marsh department store in Boston for $89.75. Nowadays, it's hard to find cameras for that cheap. Most cameras are well over $100, and most cameras are probably close to $1,000 or more. History.com also states that Edwin figured out a way to develop both negative and positive image in 1 minute and produce a dry, stabilized print. Lastly, let's move on to the interchangeable lenses in the cameras from this decade. Cameras from this decade have different lenses. Here we have a Canon camera. With this Canon camera, the lens can get out and will be wider. With this camera, it is able to focus in further objects. And it also has a lens that goes with it, and this is more of a clear lens. With this camera, it also has where you have film as well. And then you also have the cameras nowadays that have where you're able to plug it into the computer and you're able to upload them to the computer right away. In the past, these lenses could have widened out and you could only see so far, whereas the lenses today are widened so that it brings the image closer. Camera lenses from the past are about the same size and mix of heaviness to what we have in this decade. When it comes to camera lenses from the past, it was not so clear, whereas now the images that produced are sharper image. To conclude this journey of cameras that have evolved throughout the decades. Can you imagine having no cameras no longer? If we had to revert back to relying on portraits, storytelling, verbal descriptions of what other people would look like, this would be challenging for us all. Having the right credible research is so important when learning about different cameras and who the credit goes to. From the one who created the camera obscura and the first photograph called the helography, to the devices like the Kodak Brownie Target 26, and the Argus C3, and the era of instant photography with Polaroid, and lastly, to the interchangeable lenses from the cameras from this decade. The camera is more than just a device for capturing light. It is a tool for memory and the countless images that shape the collective memory.